Hey guys, it's me, Johnny Crims 2000. Welcome to part 2 of my Let's Play of the original Streets of Rage. Now in the last part, before I mentioned the last part, this is round 5. This is Aboard Ship. That's the title of the stage. And at least for some reason, Streets of Rage always has something to do with a boat. There's always at least one level that has to do with a boat. There's this one for this one, or for this game. There's an entire level very similar to this one in Streets of Rage 2, and in Streets of Rage 3, actually on the first level, I believe, you end up on the bridge of a boat. So, yeah, what's up with Streets of Rage and water? Whatever, I guess that's their thing, I suppose. But anyway, as I was talking before I rudely interrupted myself, now, there was, as I mentioned before in the very last part, I'm sorry to have left you guys in suspense of what I was talking about. I mentioned how there was at least one almost blatant reference in the Final Fight series to the Streets of Rage series, and I think by the time that Final Fight 2 came out, that's where the reference came from, Final Fight 2, I think that Capcom had caught on just how popular the Streets of Rage series had become, and believe me guys, Streets of Rage series had gotten really popular. I mean, everybody saw this game, the original Streets of Rage, and they were like, whoa, where did Sega come from? It got very nice reviews, it was very well received, and yeah, I think a lot of people were surprised, including Capcom themselves, because come Final Fight 2, which was a Super NES exclusive game, on the box art of at least the American version, I don't think the Japanese version had the original box art. There are at least two, maybe, actually I think 3, but 2 very blatant, I don't want to say rip-offs, but, I'll just say rip-offs. There's 2 very blatant rip-offs to the artwork included in both the Streets of Rage 1 box art and the Streets of Rage 2 box art. And the first one, and you guys can totally Google this, I'm not making this up, in the Final Fight 2 box art, the box art includes, it's basically like a fighting scene. I mean, that's pretty much the basics for pretty much any beat-em-up game, especially back in the day, especially between Final Fight and Streets of Rage. It's always like some kind of scene of them in a back alley beating some thugs up. But in the Final Fight 2 box art, there's 2 figures that are very, very identical to the 2 figures from the Streets of Rage box arts from 2 different games. The first one is, there is a female in the Final Fight 2 box art, obviously it's Maki, who is up in the air, jumping up, and she's kicking. Now, the position that she is kicking, the way that she's kicking, is very, very, very similar to the way that Blaze is kicking in the original Streets of Rage box art for the Sega Genesis. And that's not it. There's a guy on the floor in the in the Final Fight 2 box art. Some random thug on the floor who's just happened to fall down, I guess, who is very, very similar, almost to the T, guys. Like, I'm not even making this up. He has, open shirt. He has like a jean jacket on, sleeveless jean jacket on, no shirt underneath, black hair, jeans, and he's on the floor, and that image, that guy, is almost exactly the same as one of the guys that's in the box art for the Streets of Rage 2. It is uncanny. I'm not sure if this was, when you look at this, you'll pretty much say to yourself, it has to have been on purpose, because there's no way that it could be like that much of a coincidence. But there you go. I mean, that's how deep the Final Fight and Streets of Rage rivalry came. I mean, you guys can Google it. I'm not making this up. So anyway, back to the action. We're fighting Abadidi again. And like I said before, I love fighting Abadidi. He's so much fun to fight. So satisfying when you just take him down. And actually, this was a rather disappointment, I think, the first time. Just because we're now going to start getting to the point where we're fighting the bosses again. Obviously, we're getting close to the end of the game. Well, not that close. We still have a couple more levels to go, but still. that's where you know the difficulty is being ramped up for us, because you know, we're starting to see bosses. I think the first time I played this game I was like, Abadidi's the final character? We just fought him. But no. And of course I have no idea how this can be possible and how we can bring a car on a ship. But then again, this has to be like the longest ship in the world. I mean, how long have we been fighting? Oh, and by the way, that's item. With that item, when you pick it up, very rare. But when you do pick it up, you replenish your special attack. As I mentioned before, there's no actual way to replenish your special attack. It's not like it's not like in Final Fight where you can constantly refill your or I guess you can't. Well, you can technically refill your special attack. I mean, Final Fight, the special attack is based on your life, and this one it isn't. So when you waste your special attack, that's it. You can't do it anymore. But at least you get an item that replenishes it, and that's the thing that counts, I guess. And of course, here we go, fighting Abadidi again. But then again, at a certain point, you kind of just start getting his pattern down. Honestly, the thing that I do is either because he's gonna ram you. That's kind of what he does. He just rams you. But a good way to, if you want a tip from me, is that a good way to combat that, I guess, to counter that, is to just keep tapping the attack button. If you tap it enough times, you'll get lucky enough where you'll hit him right before he gets to, you know, give you that big clothesline that takes a big chunk of your life away. Either that, or I suggest jumping and kicking, or jumping a knee in Axel's case. But either way, you'll be fine if you just stick to those two methods, I guess. And here we go with the boss of this level. Or is it bosses? This is, oh god, I'm gonna screw these names up. This is Onihime and Yasha. And these twins of Japanese descent fight with outstanding teamwork. Onihime's forte is her flying kicks. Yasha's is her throwing techniques. Lightweight and agile, their physiques are of the highest class. Alright, now this one is actually rather unique, because unlike previous bosses where you only fight one at a time, Onihime and Yasha, you will fight both of them, regardless of how many players are playing the game at that time. So that means that if you come in here by yourself and you don't have a friend helping you out, you'll still have to fight both of these girls at the same time because they're twins. I mean, they kind of have an excuse storyline-wise why there's two of them at this, two of the same ones. And these girls can be rather annoying because they jump all over the place. They're rather fast, and they can also grab you. So it's not like you can just hope to grab them, because most likely they'll grab you back. And my god, was my friend Cory very lucky with that. We actually, when that happened, when she was midway to German suplexing the holy crap out of him, we were like, oh, are you gonna get is she gonna kill you? Is she gonna kill you? Or are you gonna get the hit before she can? But yeah, he was very, very lucky there. And that was round 5. Now we're going to round 6. The name of this stage is Factory, and of course, every game, it seems like in the 90s, especially in the beat 'em up genre, you had to have a factory level. There's no way around it. I'm pretty sure there's like a contract somewhere out there whenever you make a beat 'em up that you have to have a factory level. Now this level obviously is, as you can already tell, the big gimmick of this is that you have conveyor belts that can kind of make things rather interesting. It's not the only thing. I mean, it doesn't hinder you that much. The only thing it really does, the only thing again can get rather annoying really quickly, is that if you are standing, how should I explain this? If the enemy is standing on the floor that doesn't move, and you're standing on the conveyor belt that moves away, that means you can't combo them very effectively, because when you combo somebody, you stand still, right? So when you stun them during a combo, when you stun an enemy during a combo, they're standing still as well. But if you're in a conveyor belt, moving away from the enemy while you're standing still and while you're performing a combo, you can be performing a combo, but you can't get the last hit. You can't get too many hits in, because by the time that you're in the middle of your combo, you're being pulled away from the enemy, and he can come back and he can potentially hit you back, which can be all kinds of annoying. Now, as you guys just saw, there is another gimmick to this level, I guess, and that is the crushers. And the crushers, they're okay. I mean, they're not that big of a deal, I guess. They're not something that you can particularly, how should I say, it shouldn't be something that scares you guys too much if you're playing this game. The only thing though is that obviously if you get close to it, it does set them off and then it'll crush you. But also a more annoying part is when you have them in between conveyor belts, and that's where it can kind of get tricky, because especially if an enemy knocks you down or it stuns you long enough for you to get pulled towards the crusher, and then the crusher sets off and then you get squished, and that's never good for anybody, obviously. And of course here we're fighting the same two guys again. Bongo, big fat Chinese bongo, can't slam him, can't do anything. And yeah, that's it. And here's the part. It can sort of get kind of annoying, but not really. The good thing is that you guys can use that to your advantage, to kind of lure or even throw people towards the conveyor belt, throw enemies towards the conveyor belts, but obviously it's something that you have to look out for the entire time. The weird thing though is that you would think that when the crushers are down, that you have to wait until they go back up to move through them, because obviously there's a big crusher standing right next to you, or right in front of you rather. But that's really not the case. Once the crushers have hit the floor and they're done with their little stomping animation, I guess, you can just walk right through them. You don't get stuck. In fact, I'm pretty sure you can walk right through the sprite that makes up the conveyor, the crusher. Rather weird, but I found that early on because I was like, you can't seriously wait. You know, you can't be that you have to wait for this thing to come back up, and you can't, or you don't have to. Like, you just walk right through it. Looks weird, but hey, something, right? Something to get this thing moving along even faster. Now, obviously, if you've played any beat-em-up game before, you know that sprite color changes means a higher level of grunt. And of course, Streets of Rage is no different. The color of the sprite for the different grunts identifies their I guess level. These red guys, Garcias, and the green guys obviously are far more aggressive than the original blue ones, and they're actually, in my opinion, and this is kind of weird because Garcia is like the first, pretty much like the stereotypical grunt of the Streets of Rage series, but Garcia in their later forms, in their more advanced forms, I guess, are actually a bit of a pain. Especially when they start getting knives and stuff in their hands. That can be a big hassle, because all they have to do is walk towards you, and then you really, if you miscalculate the distance between your punch and his face, he can pretty much drill you. And of course, the black clown guy, God, I forgot his name already. Jack. Sorry, Jack. Jack, the black ones at least, from my experiences, have a higher chance of throwing their torches or their hatchets at you. They're still slow as crap. They don't really do that all that much unless, you know, you just stand there not doing anything. But, and of course, Cory made me get crushed. That's one of the things that I don't particularly like about the Streets of Rage series, is that there is friendly fire on. And as you can see right there, my sprite was going behind the crushers, which was all kinds of a perspective fail. But that's what I mean by you don't have to wait for them to come back up for you to walk through it. That's a little bit of a tip, I guess. If you can't wait for the thing to come back up, you don't have to. Just walk right through. You'll be fine. And we're almost done with this level. There's really, like I said, there's really not much to these levels except for one coming up in the next part. But most of these levels tend to be a little bit too basic. I mean, I can understand why, because this is the first of the series. This was back when the beat-em-up genre was pretty young. But yeah, it can get kind of dull if I do say so myself. And here we go. We're fighting Souther again. Whoopee, the Scandinavian guy whose hobby includes sharpening his claws. One interesting thing about Souther is that he does have an equivalent in the Streets of Rage 2 game named Zamza. In looks alone, though, Zamza in Streets of Rage 2 is by far more aggressive than Souther ever was. Not to say that Souther isn't aggressive, but we'll get to Zamza. I'll introduce you guys to Zamza when I get around to playing Streets of Rage 2, and you'll see the big difference. Really, the only similarity between the two is the claws and stuff. And we're pretty much just owning these guys with the special attack. That's one thing. If you guys can, save your special attacks for the bosses. And, if at all possible, use your special attack. If you know you're going to die, use it. If you have one. Big tip from Johnny Crimson 2000 to you. But anyway, that was round 6. And that was the end of this part. So I will see you guys in part 3 of Let's Play Streets of Rage 2. See you guys there.